I had to be reminded that I was alive. Do you see me, hear me? Give me a thumbs up or something. So, okay. Some of you are frozen, so you're not moving. Quite a few people are frozen there. I would say everybody's frozen. Is that okay? Should we just proceed? I mean, on yes. Zoom. On Zoom. Okay, we'll proceed. So the Dharma talk this morning or today is the last of the 6 paramitas, although they've added more other texts, add on 4 more that align with the bhumis of skillful means, vision, power, and wisdom. So we won't go into those. If you want to look at those a little bit, the Myth of Freedom, Trungpa Rinpoche covers those. He does a good job, but those are very difficult concepts. So I don't really talk about those much. Not because I don't have an idea what they're about, but I don't know how helpful it is to continually just overload ourselves with all kinds of concepts about everything. Just the first 6 paramitas it's quite a dose of concepts about something that is not conceptual at all. So the first 4 paramitas are more about a skillful means kind of situation that is actually talked about in the first of the additional 4 paramitas. If you want to add on the 7th, that goes into skillful means. Starting out a little bit slow here because I want to, as much as I can, to bring you into this in a way that doesn't just rattle off another bunch of ideas about prajna or prajna or wisdom or knowledge or on and on and on. Just there's so many circular and ideas and concepts about this that continue to come back into what was that about kind of thing. I've been doing this for a while, so I end up there quite a bit myself. What was that about? What is that about? What does that really mean? So I think the important thing, let's start out with, we have perceptions. Things arise, our 6 sense fields, including the mind, comes up, shows us this and that. And then we have concepts or conclusions or ideas or additions or subtractions about whatever is arising in our apparent body-mind complex. And it just seems real. It just seems like we're here and we're us, and we have all the other things that are happening in culture just continually reify, strengthen our positionality as someone who is maybe not doing so good, someone who's doing really great, or someone who's kind of in the middle, or someone who has this emotion or that emotion. It's up. I mean, it's just a tangle of what? Suffering, difficulty, stress, unsatisfactoriness. So prajna, or the wisdom that crosses over, the perfection of wisdom, starts out as just being reasonable about it. This caused that, but really this, because of the causes and conditions that are arising here, even though that person did this or did that, that caused more difficulty. Still, if you look back and you see there's more ideas and things, or causes and conditions, or just look at our upbringing, how we were treated when we were very young, how long it takes to kind of cut through that mess. That's a kind of ordinary kind of prajna, because it's still dealing with this and that, and perception and conclusion and objection and agreement, and still looking for some kind of validation of the goodness of relative truth, and how the goodness of relative truth has to somehow get ahead of the relative difficulty and overcome it. And of course, the Buddha is pointing to something quite a bit different than that. Though it's the same thing. So the Prajna, this insight, this wisdom of Manjushri, the two-edged sword that cuts through this as someone and that as something else or something other, the whole duality idea. That's what we are working with here. And without the first four paramitas, which are more about just trying to take an attitude of improving the relative stuff we see of greed and jealousy and impatience and lethargy and all that, trying to work with that in a way that brings our clarity, that is also being fueled or supported by our mind training, by Zazen, Shikantaza, Shamatha Vipassana, some kind of what is arising. Just simplifying that down to where we're just watching, keeping it very simple. What shows up, look at that. It's hard to do that without some kind of a congratulations on how well you're doing. So Prajna sees deeply into this. It doesn't go into some kind of God realm and create some kind of wonderful place that we're going to graduate to if we just are good students. It actually begins to see the raw, rugged edges of this relative pratitya samutpada. This sees the raw edges of conditioned arising, and its ego starts to join in, sits in the seat next to wisdom and says, I think I'm going to leave the theater. I'm going to get some popcorn. I don't know if I want to see this. This is too threatening to see that this is just made of food. Simply put, there's just food. And when the food runs out, or when the body which is taking in the food runs down, as it will, getting older, impermanence, that's not negative or nihilistic. It's just true. So that's what this path is about. Let's look at the truth, whatever that means. Any addition that, oh, this is nihilistic, or we shouldn't think this way, or we need to have the power of positive thinking, or whatever. Let's just look at it. Let's see what it is. Let's be brave, you could say, or maybe stubborn, might be another word. I'm going to do this. I want to see what this says myself. This is what the Buddha did, as far as we know, if there even was a Buddha. So we tend to get deceived by our conditioning. Most of the world is deceived by their conditioning. It's not that some people aren't relatively really wonderful, great. I'm sure you've noticed that some people who seem to be totally great, wonderful people are completely confused about certain things. And then other people who seem to be kind of difficult and stressful to be around or whatever, yet are practicing the Dharma. Odd, isn't it? You think it's kind of odd that you don't have some kind of a cut and dried situation. And then you, as a practitioner, will talk to 10 or 15 people about this, and then you'll notice that it's so discontinuous that we can't really make sense of it. If you look closely at anything without adding, you have to look at it and watch it rise. Whatever it is, it could be another person, could be what they're saying, could be what you're remembering about what they said 3 minutes ago. It could be what they're saying that someone next to you is commenting on what they're saying. It could be the news, could be anything. You'll notice that everything is very, very discontinuous. This is difficult for that aspect of the mind that thinks there is somebody who hasn't seen through the illusion of a separate self and a separate other, does not see the truth or suchness or shunyata or tatata, whatever fancy word or simple word, just this. Past and future are added on in the front and the back that make it look like there's some kind of a ongoing situation where we're going to be safe. And we are going to be safe. We're already safe. You are already completely not threatened, who you actually are. But who you think you are might be a little tentative. That's what I'm here to do. If I'm here to do anything, it's to encourage you to find out who you are, see who you are. Prajna, wisdom, knowledge. Please look at it. Look at it yourself. If you go out in the world and try to do anything out there, I'm not saying you can't do things out there, but the dynamic that is happening there is so confused. It's so dependently arisen from the point of view of right and wrong and up and down and back and forth and all the relative truths. Even the other spiritual paths are quite confused. And Buddhism isn't not free of that. Buddhism, there's a lot of clamping down and belief, and we've got to do this way. We've got to lock down on a tradition that happened thousands of years ago because of some kind of cultural structure that happened there. That is not necessary. This doesn't mean you can stop meditating, though. Meditation is very simple. There is no right, wrong meditation. It's you. You sit down and look at this, and you might need to do a hell of a lot of it. So as I think I said earlier, Prajna can start out as just a relative, just kind of being pretty intelligent about what's happening, just a kind of understanding about things coming and going, seeing that nobody's fundamentally to blame for things, but we still haven't transcended the polarity. We're still hooked on right and wrong. We still think some people are bad people and some people are pretty good people. There's no difference between Buddha and Mara. And they're also not the same. That's why it's so difficult for us to see that, because we are as imputed individuals living a life in a particular place, in a particular country, in a particular century, in a particular community, in a particular culture. We think this is real. We think we're here. We think we have some say-so. Maybe. So you have the first four of generosity, discipline or morality, patience, energy. And then you get to dhyana, meditation, or samten. And then the first ones are ways, kind of attitudes of how to work with this. We've talked about already. And then meditations where you just stop everything and you just look. And then with that, with the whole combination coming along, and everyone's working with that in a different way, then we sit down and we look at it. And then this is when we begin to actually move into the world. First, we sit down and we just receive. You have to do a lot of the receiving. And then at some point, or points, or maybe there's no point, or maybe there's 15 points. Points are not the point. At some point, you actually see what this is. You see, not to. You see suchness, and it's ordinary. It's ordinary. It's not some special feeling like I brought to Trungpa Rinpoche in 1975. One of the dimensions is collapsed, Rinpoche. What does that mean? So he told me it's a seed of enlightenment. It went away. It never came back. It was an experience. It was a powerful, overwhelming experience, but it wasn't this. It's the Japanese tradition. It's called makyo, illusion. But you might need those illusions so that you can have some kind of entry into a fundamental reality that there's nothing is separate from anything else anywhere. It's devastating to ego if there's anything left called the ego. So it's unproduced. like all the other paramitas, they might start out as relative. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be more patient. I'm going to work on the energy situation. I'm going to try to be more giving and understanding. And, you know, one of the best givings is to give everything your attention. Dana paramita. It's not just about handing people money or protecting people or even teaching them the Dharma, as it is traditionally talked about. I think there's 3 of them there. It doesn't matter. We can use, if you want to use that, then you can use it. We can talk about it. Unproduced. Anutpadika. So unproduced. So that means that it doesn't arise. So it's not produced. So wisdom isn't produced. It doesn't. So nothing shows up. It's unproduced. And to be very literal about it, all these paramitas, that's why they're called perfections, because they're perfect. There's nothing to correct, because there isn't anything there. They are empty of anything you think about them. And they're broken down into these parts or steps or stages, just like the 10 bhumis or the 12 bhumis, or the 4 additional paramitas of upaya, pranidhana, bala, and jnana. Skillful means vision, power, and wisdom. I don't have them memorized. Go ahead, Chezan.
I was wondering what that difference was between Prajna and Jnana, and how it seems that they are sometimes used in reverse orders depending on who's talking or writing about it.
So the last one is a Dharma mega, or cloud of Dharma, of the bhumis, or of the last 4 paramitas that are not often mentioned, or at least not a lot that I don't mention other than now. So wisdom is just it's cloud of Dharma. So there's nothing. To relative truth, it looks like a cloud, because there isn't anybody that knows anything, and there isn't anything that they know. So it's a cloud, Dharma mega. So that's the 10th one, and that as a Prajna, that's still an operational situation happening. So there's still a bodhisattva there, who he, she, they are still in motion in some way, as doing something with something else. So the elseness is still there. So it's very it's very subtle, and the difficulties that the what do we call the afflictions become more and more and more subtle the longer we're on the path, the longer we practice. And it happens differently with different people. So they become, sometimes someone starts practicing and they're doing pretty good, and all of a sudden they just have great difficulty with jealousy. It wasn't there before. They had that taken care of, and all of a sudden, coming out of a you thought was a closet door, and it's a whole warehouse. And it is that you have not, for either this lifetime or 20 lifetimes, have not dealt with aggression. And so now everything is triggering you. You all know what I'm talking about. I'm not saying you're flying into a rage or killing anybody, but intense, kind of just anything that doesn't go your way, you immediately present attribution. You immediately blame, maybe yourself, maybe other. And so the Dharma mega, or the wisdom aspect of it, doesn't see anything else. It's so complete. It is so perfect that even aggression, anything can happen. It does not mind, and it doesn't abandon anything that is happening for some kind of ideal thing that is not aggressive. Someone who's experiencing aggression, who doesn't understand what it is, will either shut down on it, ignorance, blame someone else, passion, blame themselves, passion, or actually come right out with, you're the one, you did it, you're the person For you, I wouldn't have this kind of a feeling. Nothing has changed here. There's just no one here. So therefore, if you want to see an emotion, I can manifest it. And I'm not a good actor. It's not an act. That emotion is available all the time to me and to you. But it has to come out of a complete, deep understanding that there is no one here. Nothing is produced. Even the anger is unproduced. It's a magical display. It's a lightning. It's a comet over Brittany.
She's unbound. What are the natures of the wisdom mind and the ordinary mind? Bowing.
The wisdom mind really isn't a mind. And the ordinary mind is grasping, rejecting, finding, locating, evaluating, discriminating, pushing up, pushing down, fussing around, materialistic, looking for results, and that goes on right up and through the Paramitas all the way to the liberation that will show up until we see that there isn't anything else. As long as you think there is something else, then you, me, I will have a slight grasping of something, a slight little opinion about somebody, what they said or what they did, rather than see everybody who's in front of you is the awakened one. You have to see it. We have to see it ourselves. I have to see it. You have to see it. We have to see what this is. If you don't, you'll not only suffer yourself, you'll cause others to suffer. So slow down, look closely, jump to no conclusions, to say it very relative. Anything you're concluding is ignorance. Anything that needs concluding will conclude itself just because of the nature of dependent origination. This is none of your business. And yet it's completely your business. If you realize what this is, then there isn't anything that isn't your business. But to start with, let's back up a quarter of an inch and just look at the stage set. Just look what's coming in here, what's coming there, and notice the tendency to want to grasp some kind of a program about what's happening. Some kind of a program. Say, who is that character? Have I seen them before? Is this who's the director here? Is there a director in this play of the mind, the stage of my mind? What's happening in my mind right now, relative to my neighbors, relative to anything? Further questions are welcome. You have them.
Maria Boeing. You said that wisdom mind is not a mind. So what is it?
No mind. We can go in and bounce back and forth there, or not. There's no. We can call it suchness. We can call it Buddha nature. We can give it kinds of names, but you're not going to be able to track it down particularly because you're not separate from it. It doesn't have the quality of being something else or something other or this or that. We have to work with it some way. So this is why we have the Paramitas, which are very strong concepts about the way we're functioning. And generosity, patience, energy, meditation, knowledge.
Maria Bowing, when you say no mind, does it mean that it's empty of the mind, free of the mind? Bowing?
Yes and no. We can't be totally free, or we can't talk about it. So it's both and neither. This is why Nagarjuna came on, a couple of millennia ago and said, and just kind of destroyed philosophy. Although the philosophers won't agree with him because they want us to keep thinking up stuff. But the tetralemma, not this, not that, not both, not neither. So end of discussion. That doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to study it. We should include that kind of understanding with our discussion, like when we study different Buddhist texts and so on. Just include that the whole right and wrong situation, or correct and incorrect, is should keep that in mind as we're studying and seeing that some ways of pointing to the Dharma and other ways of pointing to the Dharma are different, or have a different tone to them, or a different resonance. Some people really resonate with the 30 verses of Asabandhu. Some people really resonate with Dogen. Some people resonate so much with Dogen, they don't even want to listen to me. They just want to listen to Dogen. I know someone like that. They think that the whole thing is in Dogen. So that's what they're doing. Is that wrong? No, it's not wrong at all. I can't compete with Dogen. And not that I'm competing. More questions if you have them.
So, Gurudevin, what is the importance of the reference to the I with Prajna, or seeing, or looking, or looking upon, bowing?
I'm not sure how your question is arising particularly, but I would just say that there's nothing wrong with I, with that as an identity, or I'm doing this, or looking at this, or not looking at this. It's just that it's insubstantial.
I was talking about the sense organ of the eyeball.
Oh, that I. What about it?
It seems as though Prajna is referred to, is metaphorically referred to as the great seeing eye, or.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I'm wondering.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Well, I can comment on it. I think the of all the sense fields, the one that is the most kind of abstract. This doesn't mean that someone who doesn't have sight or doesn't have vision isn't tied up in the concepts, but the particular one of sight tends to really make things look separate. You're here and it's over there, whereas smell is very intimate, taste is very intimate, hearing is quite intimate. Even though it's over there, it's still we're hearing it, and some kind of sense of location shows up for that. That is that shows us that we're separated in a way that is more subtle and even intimate than seeing. And of course, thinking process, receiving thoughts, seeing trees, hearing birds, smelling flowers, and all of those have a different level of what I'm going to call now intimacy. But seeing is it's very Vajra-like. It's very conceptual. I mean, I'm here, and that's over there, so we can separate. This is where the intense racism and everything, because we operate out of how we look, how we appear, and that's so when we use the idea of seeing or wisdom, the wisdom eye. It's just I don't know how to put it any more literally, but I'm going to do it, and I'll just. If you have questions, please ask me about it. I have to say it this way, and it may not be helpful to you, but it may show you how difficult this is to present this. But I'm not seeing something else. I don't see other people. Of course, I see you. I relate to you, but I relate to you as you think you are. I meet people where they're at. I don't sit back and say, "Stop acting like that. You're the Buddha, you dodo." What would you think the Buddha would think? The Buddha would kick your ass for acting like that. I mean, I could do that. That's probably not going to help. I mean, I might make it with a bunch of 15-year-olds. But I'm saying that I'm seeing it. I don't teach out of what I've been taught. I mean, I can't hardly remember what the Paramitas are. I have to go back and remind myself what they are because I don't really use them. I did for a long time, but I don't anymore unless I need to teach. And then I have to think, oh, this is a great construct. Certainly helped me. And I don't remember being helped by it. I'll say that again. I don't recall being helped by studying. But what I see is how valuable that is. I see how more valuable that is now than I did when I was actually doing it. When I was doing it, I had no idea. I was just going by. My teacher said, do this. And because I I don't know how else to say it. I trusted him. I'm not asking you to trust me. That's up to you. I would say don't trust anybody. But you may need some help. I certainly did. So I'm seeing what I'm trying to tell you about. I don't know what prajna means. I have no idea what patience is. I'm probably impatient all the time. I'm not concerned with it. I don't need to show up as somebody else. So, which I keep saying, don't miss your life. I get to be my life. I'm kind of astonished that I'm even doing this, because my life to begin with was extremely ragged. And I'm not saying that yours wasn't maybe more ragged or difficult than mine, but I'm pretty astonished that I'm doing this. But I would not be doing this if it weren't that I listened to somebody and I gave them the benefit of the doubt, or I trusted them and I did what they said. You could call that slavery if you wanted to. I don't care what it is. I call it liberation. And what are you liberated from? Everything. You're liberated from something else. It's an astonishing situation that is flat out ordinary and a complete miracle at the same time. Everything you see is completely transcendent and not separate from the Buddha, and may smell terrible. So it's a kind of witnessing that just is, once it starts to show up that way, it just keeps going and has you could say, a life of its own. And you're not concerned with a destination anymore. You're not concerned with getting better. If you have negative feelings, if you have a tooth falling out, or if you have a lightning bolts in your leg, I'm not saying they don't hurt or they aren't problematic, but they're not really a big deal. Nothing is particularly a big deal. This doesn't mean, again, that you wouldn't have negative feelings coming and going. But as I've said this many times, and I'm trying to help you by saying this, that don't get rid of your negative feelings. You don't have to get rid of anything, even though the paramitas look like you're trying to be more patient, you're trying to be more generous, those are all relative situations, but they are unproduced. They start out being produced because you have to work with it relatively, but eventually there isn't anyone to be patient. So patience may be there and it may not. Someone else might think, you seem to be very patient. This is, oh, thank you for waiting. I'm sorry I kept you waiting. And you won't do anything other than say, oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'm okay. But you may notice that, they could have never showed up and you'd be fine. That's the odd thing about it. It's like I had a person get a hold of me that I haven't talked to in 5 years, and I think I mentioned her yesterday or the day before, who actually called because of her connection with me, felt like she was going to disconnect, needed to call and ask me permission to disconnect, which I thought was very, pretty amazing. That doesn't happen often. Usually people I don't hear from them anymore. She's probably studying under some kind of really great shaman somewhere or something. Go ahead, Chodo.
Chodo bowing. When you say you don't see something else, could you help point to the area where we are seeing something else?
Sure. You're projecting on everybody. Anybody you see, you have ideas about them, who they are, what they're up to, and you think there's someone there because you think there's someone here. And it might be someone here who's practicing the Dharma, someone here who's trying to, studying to be a monk, going to be ordained, who's studying the Paramitas, who's working with that, who's listening to this person, a teaching person, which is representative, not the same as, and I'm talking about the historical Buddha, I'm talking about what the Buddha pointed at. It shows up as a human being. It shows up all the time. It's just that if you don't realize it, then you're not going to be able to talk about it. Or if you do talk about it and you don't realize it, you think you realize it, then this is called a charlatan. That's what Trungpa Rinpoche called them. Now, if you're aware that what you're doing, then you could function as a Dharma teacher on different levels. So you could still teach people to meditate, help them, promote them. But if you think you're awake and you're going to teach out of your wonderful enlightenment, your Mahasamadhi. then that's just more thinking about stuff. It's just more high, maybe a very high level of relative truth, but it's still untrue. It's ultimately untrue. It's relatively true for as long as it lasts, but it can't last because it's relative. So it's conditioned arising. It's pratitya samutpada. Not bad, just there. Chiso, you have a question?
Tishabami, yes, I did. So how do we practice with these paramitas? Do we just pick up one of them over a period of time and observe how we react to the paramitas? How would we work with it?
I think it's a great question, and I probably wouldn't mention it without your question. So I really appreciate the question. These questions are good. We do this together. I don't sit back and know a bunch of stuff. I'm going to talk to you about the hardest thing for me to do just before I get in here. So I have no premonition of what I'm going to talk about other than I just sent Junshu the name. And the only reason I'm doing this is somebody asked me, will you talk about the paramitas? It was Jessica, wasn't it? Well, Jessica, I think you noticed I didn't call you Jennifer. I want credit. So what I would say here, Chisho, is you may work on just one of those. One of them you may be reflecting on. You may write it down. You may reflect on that. As it says in Atisha's 7 Points of Mind Training, I don't remember which slogan, but work on the greatest defilements first. And so I would, even though I might know what yours is or have an idea what it is, I trust you to see that. So, if I think that probably the best paramita for you to work on would be, I'm just going to throw one out there, just the first one, generosity, which I don't particularly think is that would be so much of an issue, or you need to look at how greedy you are or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but I think each person, if you want to use the paramitas, then go ahead and go through them, read about them, listen to what I'm saying about them. Read Trungpa Rinpoche talks about them in all over the place. Well, especially he talks about them somewhat in Cutting Through and Myth of Freedom. Quite a bit. He connects the paramitas with the bhumis, the 10 bodhisattva bhumis. Like I said earlier, I don't do too much with that because there's just so many concepts, and it's just we tend to get into so much conceptual foliage that we're in some kind of a jungle and it looks real, it looks concrete, it makes sense. There's a tree, there's a limb, there's a branch, but there's so many of them, and they're all pointing to what? Some aspect of the teaching that especially scholars want to promote that because they're very good at that. So, but if you're sitting in front of me, that means you want to wake up to what this is. If you wake up to what this is, Buddhism vanishes. Buddhism is a raft. And once you get to the proverbial visual of the other shore, you don't need a raft. If you're dragging it around with you, it's going to be kind of odd. But if you find that someone asks you for your help, even though you may not think of yourself as a Dharma teacher or as enlightened, particularly, the raft appears, the paramita appears, and you hear yourself respond because there's no longer a solid being anywhere. You hear yourself respond, and it may be, stop sitting, don't sit for a few weeks, and you don't have any backup plan. Like, I don't know why I'm saying that to him. I should be meditating. But you hear it because you meet the person where they're at, and there will be no evidence that you're meeting them where they're at, other than if there's any shrapnel or bare bones of ego or self-centeredness still worrying about things in there, which there probably will be. That aspect could show up as, I had no clue what I even said that. So as long as we're embodied, it's going to be pretty hard to completely transcend this world. So you would be working on, when I say paramita, maybe not the paramitas. I know right now that you're studying with other people with Sokuzan and Mayun, studying 30 verses together. That's a powerful set of concepts that just, if you keep bringing your relative mind into that area, it's just like So it just like tends to dissolve things without your permission. You know, just so you can feel that the way that works. So that may be a good area. But you also might, if you read through the Paramitas and hear what they say, one might resonate. You might go more into that particular one. But it's not so much about studying that, the Paramita of Virya. It's about thinking about what Virya is and how that shows up for you, and how that is for you, and maybe contemplating that aspect of your life for a while. Just what is Virya, or what is it, Sandru? What is the energy level of what is it? You know, is there a lazy person here? Is there a person who's really energetic? Are there ways that I seem to have more energy with no apparent push? Just the energy is there. I sometimes say that before I come in to do this, to talk to people about this, I might be just half asleep, or have no idea. But as soon as I have questions from people, I get all kinds of energy, especially considering my age, my health, and all those things. It'd be pretty hard to shut me down. Even Zoom. Have you noticed? When Zoom shuts me down, you notice that? I keep right on talking. And then I notice there's nobody there. It just says, you're not listening to me anymore. Mm-hmm.
Still bowing. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Oh, no. You. No.
Okay. Still bowing. How do we not get trapped in the relative sense of the Paramitas? Say I think I'm being generous. How do I not just stop there? Bowing.
Okay. Thank you, Saito. Just notice the trap. I mean, if you're able to tell me about it in a question and ask about it, then I'm going to return you to the area you perhaps just tried to abandon, or not be that way. It's a little bit embarrassing, especially in our own, to be embarrassed when nobody even knows about it. Kind of embarrassed that we're trying to be a better person who doesn't get trapped. In that way, I would say just go back and allow yourself to be that way. You don't have to operate in, you don't have to lock and load and do something expressive of that particular situation. But you go back and just allow yourself to see the nature of the defense. Watch how you defend yourself, or watch how you promote something that is could be somewhat harmful, not only to yourself, but to someone else. So get to know yourself. This is what Trungpa Rinpoche was saying when he said, make friends with yourself. How do you do that? Sit down and look at the oligarch that's in the seventh consciousness, that one who does not want to lose, does not want to look bad, and wants credit. It's just the me feeling, and it's intense. It sometimes gets more intense the more we don't appear so self-centered or egotistical to others. But we're starting to really see it. And as we begin to really see it, we're not going to shut down on it. We're not going to promote it. We're not going to do anything. So it's called the path. And it's difficult. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, an incredible formula for dealing with this. Teaching person, what's being taught, community. I emphasize that over and over again. So I might as well be a Theravadan or a pulmonologist. Similar.
Kevin bowing.
Yes.
Sokuzan, relatively, I've heard the Paramitas taught antidotes to neurosis or negativity. When we find our relative broom closet of anger is a warehouse, is just being willing to look at that and sit with that energy the Paramita of, say, patience, for example?
I think you're very close to that. I would say that's the kind of quality that begins to arise. But even that, I would say, don't maintain that as I must be doing this right. If there's some kind of self-validating situation, have a willingness to just not know and just be lost in the wilderness, because we are lost. we keep looking at we keep bringing up little things that are supposed to save us, like a compass. You know, if you don't know where you're going, compass is meaningless. It's just if you don't know what it is, you show a compass to a 4-year-old, and they might be interested, but their interest and your interest are quite a bit different. You actually think it's going to help you. They just want to chew on it. So the idea there is just however it comes, notice that your mind, your attitude will fluctuate. So when I say the sitting meditation practice is watch what moves, that's also true for post-meditation, as long as you don't enforce it. Just watch what moves in post-meditation, and be kind, be generous to any negative feeling that's coming this way or leaving or coming through the warehouse door. Just be friendly. There's nothing is threatened. Who you are is not threatened. And that's difficult to see if you're looking in the red eyes of a dragon. And so there's a question here from Austin in the YouTube says,
I can read it if that's helpful.
Okay.
Austin asks, from your vantage of not separate, who is asking this question?
You are. You're asking the question. Didn't you just ask the question? Yeah, not easy. You're asking the question. Oh, you meant me. I see. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm asking it. And who am I? Not separate. So that's why I really get to ask it. That's why the confidence is unconditional. It's so unconditional. I'm ready to cash in my chips. There's nowhere to go. Realize it. Realize it. Find out who you are. Sit down and don't take anything for an answer. No, nothing else. So I could say one of the ways I say it is the question is asking the question, or the quality of the consciousness itself is asking the question.
Joseph asks, what is evidence? What is the battle over evidence that seems to continually manifest in news and social media?
Yeah, it's just intense belief in separation and right and wrong. It's not that there isn't a relative right. Sure, some people are on one end of the spectrum and some people are on the other. Don't go to war, don't go to peace. I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and carry signs if you feel moved to do that, but make sure you're really aware of what you're up to. And it's difficult because it's confusing. The world is not going to make itself better. I'm not saying it won't improve and get better and be pretty good, but without a spiritual path, without understanding the deep, deep nature of reality and thinking that there's a world and that there are bad people and good people. And that can show up in that kind of prejudice is all over the place. It's not just the black people and white people. I mean, that's a really obvious one. Or indigenous people, or all the other, anybody who looks anything other than like an old man like me who is white. We don't. It's just invisible. We don't see that we think we're us white guys think we're somebody, and those other people are just the help. It's just an intense situation. So, but it's very hard to go in at the surface of the problem and start hammer and tool or hammer and tong trying to change the surface of it. It's way down deep where this is coming from. And I have to say it this way because I don't know how else to say it. I don't believe in past lives. I don't believe in future lives. I don't believe in lives. I don't believe in anything. But I don't ignore anything, and I don't disbelieve anything. And I highly recommend it. It's a mind like the sky. Things come and things go. You don't miss anything, but you don't attach, cling, shove out, push on, close down on anything. And that's challenging when the world is coming apart and you're watching it. Because the illusion of other is powerful, and it causes us to believe we're a body that's threatened. And it's not that we're not, especially if your karma brought you into this life as a person who is at the negative end of prejudice, or brought you into this world who's at the, shall we call it, the positive end of prejudice, the one who is being prejudiced. Both of those are very difficult, and you can't just go to war with the other one to try to get peace. Don't do it. What do you do? As I've quoted this over and over again, because I think it's a great quote because it's such a strong image, and it's a very simple way. The poet Kabir said in a century or two ago, whenever it was, if inside your heart you have a loaded gun, how can you have God? So, unload the gun. And how do you do that? You see that you have a loaded gun to start with. And then maybe the continuing to use that image, maybe it starts to melt or disappear, or you stop reinforcing it. You don't even have to get rid of it if you see it's unreal, and it's a misunderstanding. The word I like to use is a misunderstanding of the incredible nature of this world, the astonishing. Precious human birth brought us in here and brought us all together on this day. It's just flat out magic. It's auspicious coincidence that we met, that you met each other on this kind of a mandala. As I say often, if you're listening to me because of what I've done or been through or what I'm saying, if you're listening to me, you're probably ready to hear this. You're probably ready to awaken. But it's not just going to occur. It's something you have to look at. Further questions? Jisho.
Ishabali. So when you say that you don't know what you're going to talk when you come into this session, but you're still aware that you're not, you don't know. That's also a shred of awareness, it feels like. Is working with Paramita something like that, ultimately, Sokuzan?
Yes. It is. So quite often I'll make some notes, and then I won't read them. I'll think, well, I'll write this, and think, well, and then I'll set them down, and then I just end up talking, and I notice that I might have looked at the note for something, but it looks like somebody else wrote it. I don't know where that came from. Is this yours? It's odd. It's an odd thing. That's why I like questions, because I don't really know what to say. But if any one of you, come to me and ask me about something because I'm getting to know you and I'm seeing the way in which you keep squirreling away the things you don't want to look at. And I'm not in a position where I can come out and just, you need to do this or that. Although on occasion I've done that.
Bowing. A question from Austin again from YouTube.
Yes.
Do questions always miss the mark in an absolute sense?
No. No, the question and the response is absolute. It's not separate. The question's not separate. So not separate. They have their relative nature, but this is why, even in the Zen tradition, this is an ancient tradition. It's called Mondo, or talking about the student and the teacher talking, not just conversationally, particularly, spreading gossip, particularly, but interacting around the question and answer is very important. That's what this quality is. I do that I call it mountains and rivers, so that isn't tied down by the so much by Mundo concept. But yes, absolute there's no mark. Even if there's no answer. In ancient times, because of the teaching styles from different centuries and different cultures and so on, sometimes no answer at all was the answer. And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is yes. And this is why they use these logical kungans or koans. Does a dog have the Buddha nature? Moo, which doesn't mean it's a cow. It means it's empty. But you could say you could speak about it either way. What's the one from? Could you read the one from Joseph?
I did earlier. I can read it again if you'd like. There's another question from Austin. Is it possible to ask a non-conceptual question? What would it sound like?
You just asked it. That was a question, and you were asking if it's possible to ask one. And so I just turned that into a non-conceptual question. You just asked it. No answer for that. There's no answer for any question. It's just a participating in the play of phenomena. No self in the sky does form, feeling, perception, concept, consciousness do not add up to a person. I'm not saying there's not a food body here that needs more food. Well, today I'm not going to have any food, but I'll still breathe oxygen.
Shokabowing.
Shoka.
How do questions point us towards where to look if there's no answer?
Well, I'm saying of course there's an answer. I'm just saying that because of what was asked about absolute. So if you try to find any kind of reference point out of it, but yeah, you ask a question, and I'll be reasonable. I'll respond to your question as best I can. Your problem is you just don't ask the right questions. That's your problem.
Shokabowing, what are the right questions?
Keep asking. I'll let you know. Next time you ask the right question, I'll give you a thumbs up. But I won't do it if there are other people there, because I don't want to flood your self-centeredness with praise. I'll wait till nobody's there, and then you'll have to tell everybody you got a thumbs up.
There's another question from Joseph.
Yes.
Is putting the gun down a way to look at it?
Well, using that metaphor, yeah, you don't have to throw it away or do something, but yeah, just I would say yes. As the way in which you're understanding of it. It might be very difficult to do that with a really strong awareness practice. You personally, Joseph, are a very, very conceptual person. You actually live on a conceptual construct. So I'm not commenting on your intelligence. If I were to do that, I would say you're a lot smarter than I am, which is not a compliment. It's a description. But I would say, be careful that you make sure that when you lay the gun down, you don't know what you're doing. Because if you know what you're doing, then you're getting a credential. I'm putting my gun, or in this case, my kotsu, down. That doesn't function as dealing with a loaded gun. That functions as doing something. You don't have to look at the loaded gun. So what am I saying here? I'm saying it might be better to just stare at that gun for a couple of years. How do you do that? Face the wall. Sit down, hold still, watch what moves. And that gun image, if you're using that, will show up. And what will show up is how much aggression you have. You can't just take aggression in the form of the loaded gun and put it down. What that metaphor is meant for is to help you see that you have a loaded gun. A loaded gun. So seeing that gun, if you see it, there may be a putting down quality to it. You may describe it that way. You might write a poem about it. But it's just that the aggression, there's no one any longer who's aggressive. So it's just a way of talking about it to get your attention to the aggression. But the fundamental situation is the identity of someone who has a loaded gun, not just a loaded gun. We need to look at that first so that we can go say, who is the scaredy cat here that's walking around with a lock and load mentality? And as you've heard me say probably hundreds of times, how do I know? Here, that's how I know. Hakaran, you have a question? I saw your screen change.
Hakaran bowing. No questions.
Okay, thank you. Any other? We're past time, but I can take another question if there is one.
Maria bowing.
Ms. Maria.
Is immediacy the same as awareness? Bowing.
Is immediate?
Immediacy the same as awareness?
You know, there's I think there's something to that, but we can't necessarily validate it or use it as a credential or use it as proof or use it as anything. But yeah, it's just this. You're just receive whatever's in front of you. The computer, and over time we begin to notice how we're not really receiving what's in front of us. We're receiving what we think is in front of us. And of course, the intense version of that is other, as we believe in duality. We believe that we are separate. We're better, or sometimes we're worse than others. Just like I said, Joseph is smarter than I am. That's not it's not an evaluation. It's not a compliment. It's just true. I'm very aware of my thinking process, and from talking to him and listening to him talk over the years, off and on, he's handles concepts in a much more crisp and way than I do or am able to. It's awareness. It's not an evaluation on anything. I can tell the difference between a pine tree and a maple tree, but I don't think the pine tree is better. Just like I don't think Joseph is somehow a really wonderful person and I'm a stupid yard bird. I tried. Yes.
There's a question from Raphael in New York. There are so many spiritual teachings, each one, whether directly or indirectly, claiming to be the best way for awakening. It's so easy to get confused and lost in a sea of information. Is there any clear way to know if one is going in a good direction for awakening and not sinking in concepts and teachings?
A fantastic question. And it's a fantastic question. I would say, trust yourself. Don't trust anybody else. Don't believe a word I say, including that one. Believe nothing. The belief is what traps us. We think, oh, maybe this will work. Maybe this will work. No shopping. Don't. I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to what a Dharma teacher is saying or listen to what I'm saying or listen to what Muji or Adyashanti or the Dalai Lama or the Karmapa or all the other people that are teaching awareness practice and meditation. I mean, it's all over the place now. It's just the world is flooded with that kind of thing. So you could look around, but I wouldn't jump to conclusions about anything. Don't do anything unless you have to. You don't have to train your mind. Don't do it. Probably won't hear that too often. That being said, if you have a connection with this person, you'll know it. And then it's up to you from there on. If you have a connection with another Dharma teacher, as I said, His Holiness Dalai Lama, or maybe one of his students, or maybe someone maybe you're somebody you're already studying under, I would say, there's certain ways, just that you can ask that question tells me you're pretty sensitive to red flags. You're pretty sensitive to when someone's actually, they're about, they might have worked on themselves a lot. They might have a lot of polish and a lot of pizzazz, but there's something not so true about what they're doing. They seem to be more interested in manipulating students and getting more students by functioning a certain way or making promises or whatever. Anytime you hear any promise from any Dharma teacher, keep on going. Further question if you have it.
Shogabang, there's a question in the Zoom group chat from Melissa.
Yes, Melissa.
If I'm being aggressive with frustration in a sports game, am I being competitive or a loaded gun? Melissa Bond.
It could be a little that we're our whole sports thing. It depends on who's playing. Some people are very playful, and it's very much a play or a game, and they're really trying to use their ability or strength or accuracy or being able to handle whatever that is in a way that's interesting, that's challenging, that's fun, that has a competition to it that's not based on warfare or anger or hatred. And then there's other ones where it goes over and gets too difficult. A little bit of fun around that is good. And so I think you would know when you win or lose how much anger may come up or jealousy. If you're just working with that, if you're just aware of that, as you hear me say over and over again, it's about awareness. It's not about improving. If somebody's telling you need to improve or get better, even if we're studying the Paramitas, this is about an attitude. And if you're not ready to, it's not like forced patience. It's about seeing how impatient you are. That's how you train your mind. It's about seeing how greedy you are. That's how we train generosity. The other way is, I say on the cushion, is say, give everything that moves your attention. That's the beginning of generosity, is to give, not to receive. Unless you're receiving, in which case then it's received. Are we good?
Dedicate the merit.
We can dedicate the merit in the monastery, if you would, please.
And just to remind everybody, this Saturday will be our all-day retreat virtually. So
If people want to join, they can join virtually for the all day.
yes.
Thank you for all of your questions. Very good. Appreciate the help.
Penetrate into all places, so that we in every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokuzan Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering. Fill them with light.
May you always be happy And I'll read a few more of these if I can. Que siempre seas feliz. Pouvez-vous toujours être heureux? Yanni Yongyan Kailu. Mogest du immer glücklich sein. That's about all I can do today. So, thank you.